those I've not had the privilege of meeting, I'm Ashley, and along with my daughters, Kate and Madeline, we have been attending this church for 3 years now, soon after our family relocated from Durham, North Carolina. The reason I support our church is because of the sanctuary this beautiful and simple sanctuary provides me each Sunday. 5 years ago, if you had asked me or told me that I'd be part of a church community, I would have had no reason to believe you. For 15 years, I had not entered a church apart from attending Christmas Eve services at Duke University Chapel. But that all changed on December 26, 2016. The day after Christmas, my son Everett, Kate's twin brother, was playing outside with his new Fire Dragon Lego set, having just put it together with his dad, when he was instantly killed by an unmanned roll-away dump truck. In a literal blink of his eye, he was stolen from this world, and our lives were shattered. Words don't do justice to the anguish, disorientation, and intense fear that accompany sudden traumatic death. I know there are those of you who know exactly what I mean. 2 months after Christmas, and I can't tell you why, but I found myself stumbling back into Duke Chapel. I would sit in the hard, well-worn wooden pews, surrounded by stained glass and gray stone, not know a single soul, and I would just cry. I especially cried when the choir sang an a cappella version of John Rutter's God Be in My Head. The song softly concludes, God be at mine end and at my departing. Was it possible that God was at Everett's end? Church became the place I began to wonder about God and wrestled with him. Though full of anguish, not sure my head believed a word coming from the pulpit, I always returned. Each time my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces during sermons of God's love. During the sermon that I remember as if it was yesterday, based on Romans 8:26, where Paul encourages us that though we live in a world full of suffering, God's Spirit is with us. The scripture reads, we do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. The dean of the chapel emphasized those seasons in our life in which there are no words that do our pain justice. Rather, all we have to offer are groans, utterances, and cries. That felt just so right to me at that moment. My tears were my prayers. Each Sunday, I felt God ever so gently brush together the broken pieces of my heart, hand them back to me, and say, I'm so very sorry Everett died. In church, God sat with me. In church, God cried with me. In church, God whispered to me that what happened to Everett was not what he intended for this world. Nearly 2 years after Everett's death, we moved up here as a family of 4 with a 5th in our hearts. Once again, I found myself stumbling into church. This church, our sweet, small church. The architecture is nothing like the majestic Gothic cathedral of Duke Chapel. But our church has God in it, and that's who drew me to church in the first place. Our church continues to be a sanctuary for my heart, though the tears are less these days. Church is no longer just for grieving, but also for community, service, and laughter. It has become a place of warmth and joy for Kate and Madeline, and I want that to continue for them as they grow up. I want them to know that they are never alone, that God is at their sides, and that they have many friends here. I want them to wrestle with God about the many injustices in life that don't make sense. I know their heads will ache with dissonance, but I also know their souls will be well. And so in conclusion, I give to our church very simply because of the sanctuary the church has given me. And I can't take that for granted as we see churches throughout Vermont shutter their doors for lack of membership. I don't want that for Stowe. I don't want that for my girls. And I don't want that for anyone else whose pain is indescribable. If church has been your sanctuary, and if you're in a position to contribute, I encourage you to do so.
Thank you, Ashley, for sharing your heart and your story with us. We have a role to play as a church. This space is a healing space for so many. May we continue to keep our doors open and offer this space and the gift of our lives to our community and to our wider world.